message Alfio Quarteroni.
So thank you very much for this introduction, and it's a great honor for me to be here this evening. I'm going to talk about mathematics. Actually, I'm going to talk about TED, which means technology, entertainment, and design. And the critical issue and the critical question is why math matters with this story. And I'll try to convince you in these 18 minutes that math matters. Technology. Math matters for technology. This is just a statement from the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, 2008. And the statement is that technological innovation is increasingly based on the results and techniques of scientific research. That research, in turn, is both underpinned and driven by mathematics. So mathematics is underpinning and driving this research. And I would like to try to convince you that math is, first of all, very pervasive in our society. And here are three examples. Of course, there are very, very many. But here are three of them. You know that if you want to have secure transactions by e-banking or using your Visa card, for instance, you need to use special devices and special criteria. And these criteria are driven by very sophisticated mathematical algorithms. And what is surprising to see is that these algorithms are based on a number theory, which is perhaps the most abstract branch of mathematics today, and actually is based on factorization of prime numbers, which are considered to be completely useless concepts, right, for non-mathematicians. Now, if you use internet, if you want to search through internet, we see that indeed the key to a very fast search is manipulating matrices and devising suitable algorithms for computing eigenvectors of matrices, still something quite hidden to the, I would say, ordinary people. And if you want to transmit images through our mobile phone, we need very sophisticated compression algorithms. Let me just elaborate on a couple of points. Searching on the web, it is estimated that there are about 230 million of websites and about 1,000 of billions of web pages today. Of course, it's increasingly exponentially fast. There's 1.5 billion of users worldwide, and of course, when you go on the internet, you search information. It's like going on a library and asking a lady to make a miracle, finding this information for you in a very, very fast way. And how is that possible? Well, through the search engines. And there are very many. And I'm going just to mention Google because it's perhaps one of the most powerful. And here is just, let me see, a simulation, right? Assume that you want to see what you can find out by printing TEDTalks on Google, and you see that very, very quickly we have about 29 millions of pages in 0.08 seconds. So among 1,000 billions of web pages, Google is capable of retrieving 29 millions in just 1/10 of seconds. Well, what is the explanation? The explanation is not so simple, but very roughly speaking, you can think of having several pages, many pages, many billions of pages, and then we would like to relate or to link the different pages through formulae. And the formula is the page rank. So you want to see at which extent the page is important. And of course, you have to relate to the others through simple, like in this case, linear relationships. The point is that you have so many pages that this is going to be a system with a gigantic size. And how do you manipulate this system? How do you extract from this system what is relevant, which is information on its eigenvalues and eigenvectors, and this is the recipe of Google. And you need extremely fast algorithms to be able to have all this information in such a short time. So can you say that Google is fast because of mathematics? I think that this is partly true. And of course, the fact that today we can manipulate this universe of information in such a short time is because we have efficient algorithms that have been developed in the past 10 or 15 years. We use our mobile phone. We have about 2.5 billion of messages that are sent every day only in the US. Now assume that you want to send a picture through your mobile phone, and this is very natural. Now today we consider this as a kind of inevitable, right? It's free, it's absolutely available. You send a message and you receive a message with the good quality, the quality that you actually would like to have. So what does really happen? Indeed, you send this picture into an algorithm, which is, say, a fast wavelet transfer. You digitalize it, you transmit it, you receive it, and then you have to decompress this information and use the inverse of the same transfer. Now, these transforms are mathematical algorithms that were invented not billions of years ago, but just 15 or, say, 18 years ago, and are constantly improved. And it's only because of that that today we are capable of doing such a very natural thing in such a quick and easy way. In fact, the message is that in our daily life, there is more mathematics that you can think of. And mathematics is almost everywhere. Well, if we can exaggerate a little bit, we can say that water is mathematics, or water can be expressed by mathematical equations. If you can solve these mathematical equations, you have a complete picture about what is going on in the water. You know the velocity, the pressure, the temperature, and whatever. The sea waves can be described by simple, say, for a mathematician, mathematical equations. The competition between predators and prey can still be, and again, be reproduced by or expressed by mathematical systems of equations. And you can discover very important element in nature, for instance, the pattern of lemurs, this beautiful and regular distribution of stripes of zebras. Or say you take the butterfly fish with these stripes, which are so regularly distributed and so wonderful. Again, these can be expressed in terms of a system that is called the diffusion system, still governed by mathematical equations. So there's a lot of mathematics in nature, but you can use mathematics for not only for observing nature, for interpreting nature. You can use mathematics for in a functional way to design, to entertain your partners. And the key point or the key word is models, mathematical models. What is a mathematical model? A mathematical model describes world through equations. So you have two basic concepts: the models and the equations. You need equations to form a model, and the model is there to describe reality. The real world, and this is a cartoon, is becoming, through this box, a mathematical world. And this is the model box, right? The modeling box. Now, let me make a comment here. Mathematics is a virtual lab, is an immaterial lab, right? And I think this is the most important strength of mathematics. You can use mathematics to predict impact of earthquakes. Like, say, this is a very important architectural heritage in our country, and math is not destructive. You don't need to go to the lab or try to use a real seismic wave on the Colosseum to see the way this mathematical representation of the Colosseum will react to an external impulse. And you can describe different kinds of scenarios. See, a wave that is propagating is creating deformation on the structure. You can consider different kinds of scenarios and see the way the structure will react to a very extreme event. Math is used for human life. Well, this is our cardiovascular system, our circulatory system, which is made of hundreds of big arteries and veins, and thousands of small veins and arteries, and billions of capillaries. It's a very complex system, like I would say, the traffic system of a big country. Right? How can you model it? Well, you have to start from data. You have to start from clinical imaging. You have to create volumetric reconstruction. To solve the problem in a coronary, you have to have a picture of the coronary, that you get from MRI or CT scan, and on that ground, you have to construct a solid model, solid three-dimensional model. Then you need mathematical equations, and this is the modeling part, to describe the way blood flows into our vessels. Then you need to compute the solution. You need big computers because this is a very big problem to be handled. And then you're ready to face clinical applications or to simulate different possibilities of making surgical interventions, for instance, without touching the patient. Or optimizing prosthetic devices, optimizing a bypass or a shunt. See, math is not invasive. You can use it in many different contexts, describing different kind of scenarios, different kind of opportunities, and try to end up with quantitative and hopefully very, very useful information. This is the carotid artery, which is in our neck, and this is the blood flow in the carotid artery on a single heartbeat. You see here this wavelet, which is describing the peak of the impulse provided by the heart on a single heartbeat. So this is obtained by solving an equation that is called Navier-Stokes Equations. And here is the same kind of equation. However, this time, this artery is much more realistic because you have the interaction with the deformation of the arterial wall. So here we try to simulate the way healthy arteries are behaving. And of course, once you have those kind of models, you can understand or better understand the way unhealthy arteries with plaques of or a stiffness, which is not the healthy one, can behave under the action of the blood flows. You can be a bit more ambitious in describing the whole ascending aorta. Here are this is physical time. You go from 0 up to 1.8. These are two heartbeats, actually, almost 2 seconds. You see the streamlines. You see the way blood flows in the aorta. Here you see the carotid arteries. You see here the deformation of the aorta in terms of displacement, and here you see the particle trachea, say. Now everything is steady, is at the end of the first cycle, and then you start the second cycle with the second pulsation, and again you see the way blood is flowing into our aorta. You can go along and see the way blood is behaving in a bifurcation, for instance, in the iliac artery. And again, this is an healthy situation that you can simulate through mathematical equations. Now this is the bifurcation. You see the way you have recirculation past the bifurcation. Now you know that in our body, very often you may develop atherosclerotic thickening past bifurcation. So this is why it's so important to have clear and accurate solvers or mathematical models that can predict the way blood behaves past bifurcations. You can try to use models to design new bypasses. Like in this case, you have a bypass graft, you have an occluded artery, the abdominal aorta, and you put this bypass graft in order to simulate the recirculation that you have, and by so doing, you can have an idea on the way you can get the optimal shape of these two branches. This is artificial, of these branches, in order to reduce the, say, unstable or turbulent sometimes behavior of blood after the creation of a bypass. Of course, you can use math models for the brain, and the ambition is to understand the way our brain works. And here is another mathematical simulation in which you see that the way the pressure behaves in the brain under the action of the heartbeat. On the other side, you see here the way oxygen diffuses through the circle of Willis. This is the circle of Willis, which is at the baseline of our brain. So that's a very complex system. We are trying to combine different types of components and try to see the way the system reacts in either physiological or pathological condition. You can simulate what happens when one of these branches is closed. And this happens, and the way our brain redistributes blood flow on the old system, say. You can use this kind of scenarios. You can use a non-invasive type of analysis, and that's very important because there is no protocol to observe, of course. You can use mathematics for having for increased performance in sports, to design, for instance, a Formula One car, and these again are very important figure, I'd say. Today, it is estimated that the performance of a racing car is due by 15% to the engine, the 35% to the weight, and up to 50% to aerodynamics. This is why it's so important to have the optimal design, or try to improve the design beforehand. And if you look at here, the classical time loop, to get a car produced in 9 months, well, you need actually only 1 month to manufacture it, or to assemble it, and you need 8 months for the virtual design. And here is where you use mathematics. So most of the time is spent on paper and pencil, or on the computer, say, and this is why math is such an immaterial lab. And it's an interesting laboratory because it's cheap. You can change many parameters in your design, and again, you do it on paper and pencil. You don't need to do it. You don't have to make it in reality. It's cheap. It's fast. You can try many scenarios. You can try hundreds of different scenarios, different shapes, and this optimal. It's optimal because you can aim at building optimal solutions, say. You can use it, of course, for technology in the aerospace industry to go from a conceptual design through its geometrical interpretation, through the solution using mathematical models. You can use it in for America's Cup competitions where, again, you start from a preliminary design, you turn it into a geometric design by the CAD and by grid generation, say, and then you use the model to simulate what's going on, to compute the pressure, the forces, the streamlines, the turbulences, and you can consider the 3 vital components of a flow field around a boat. The waves, this is the wave pattern, this is America's Cup hull, and that's the way the waves are developing and are, of course, wetting the surface. You can simulate the turbulence past the appendages. This is a bulb, these are the winglets, this is the keel, and this is the rudder, and you can simulate wind around sails. And this is a very complex problem because you have the flow equations on a turbulent flow. You have, you see, you have flow separations. You have structural dynamics, namely a code that is capable of reproducing the displacement, the strain and stresses in a solid structure like sails, and you have their interaction, which is a fast, nonlinear, dynamic interaction. And once you have your code optimized, you can just simulate the real competition. You can see the way forces are distributing on the whole components of the boat, and you can also predict you can also use what is called game theory to predict the behavior of the 2 competitors in very severe conditions. And this is the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank you very much.